photography editing live stream where you can submit your images before the stream starts, and I'll edit them here for you live using DxO Photolab 8. And this is not a photography critique or thing like anything like that. It's mostly about learning the tools of DxO Photolab 8, looking at the workflow that I use to edit images, and to show you or highlight some of the tools that DxO Photolab 8 gives you, and why it's my preferred editor of choice. And it's always a lot of fun to edit other people's images. You guys always submit great images for me to edit, and it's good practice for me as well. And I do run the streams ad-free this month, so we don't get interrupted. And also, I'm going to rely on your support through memberships if you'd like to support the stream. It's just 99 cents per month to support my live streams, and also through direct donations and links below and all of that good stuff. Also, I'm an affiliate for DxO, so if you're interested in getting DxO Photolab 8 or any of their products, I do have a 15% discount code down below for first-time buyers of DxO products. And I highly recommend it. It's what I personally use, and I think it's the best out there. So, with all that said, I see Marcia's here. Good morning, Marcia. Um, I can see you're editing for the first time because it's not Friday. Oh, really? And William's here and Intrigue's here. Good to see you guys. Always good to see everyone. And I'm sorry for the off day. Uh, Maybe I can change it to Wednesday so you can join us, Marcia. I guess it doesn't really matter what day I do it. Just my schedule's been a little crazy last week, this week, and next week. So maybe I'll just switch it permanently to Wednesdays, because that's kind of my least busy day, uh, at least lately. But we'll see how it goes. So that said, let's get right to the images. And we'll start here. Uh, excuse me. And the first one here we have from Will House, looks like. And it's a beautiful architectural image. Gosh, almost don't need to do anything to this image. I mean, I kind of like the very cool uh, white balance that's kind of set into it. And this is a raw file, so let me see. The raw file looks like it was preset in camera, possibly. Um, Maybe, I'm gonna try maybe an auto correction here for perspective, but yeah, that's just gonna mess it up. But what I'm seeing here is a little bit of a uh, what do they call this? Perspective distortion, right? It's skewing or keystoning. Whenever I do architectural, uh, I try to straighten the lines as much as I can. That said, overall, my process for editing in Photolab 8, the first thing I look at is the composition, the exposure, if I need to make any adjustments there, and white balance. Just sort of global changes before I actually start to go in and edit the individual elements in the composition using the tools. And just initially, the only thing I see is a little bit of a keystoning problem here where the lines kind of go up at an angle. So I think let me start with that, and then I'll look at the other elements. So I'm just going to click on perspective. Actually, I've never tried this. If I reset first and just dial in manually the corrections, and I think it's Control G. I can add a grid. So if you click Control G on your keyboard, you can bring up a grid, and this grid's adjustable. I just have it preset to something like 10 or 12 across. But now this line is straight. This line is pretty much straight. And then this line is still a little bit crooked here on this side. So what that means is I probably have to rotate the image just ever so slightly and then adjust the keystoning here. So I'm going to where is the horizon correction? I'm going to rotate it a little bit to the left here so that I have roughly, let me see, maybe, yeah, let me rotate a little bit to the left, maybe a little more, so I get almost equal keystoning on both sides. I guess I should face the camera, but I'm trying to get the keystoning equal on both sides. And then I'm going to just adjust in here 1 point at a time on the slider. Okay, that's going in the wrong direction. So let me go this way. And now I got this side straight again and this side straight. So yeah, that's looking good. That's close enough. It's not perfect, but I think so I see a little bit here still. Let me try one more. Okay, that's close enough. Uh, and I'm gonna just click on here, auto based on keystoning. So it's gonna bring the crop within the bounds of the image. Okay, perfect. I'll get rid of the grid. Uh, then the other aspects of the image and composition, I wish this railing here didn't get cut off here. So I'm going to think about this for maybe some additional cropping. So we may not need this left corner or the left side of this image so much because all of the main elements here look pretty good. I got a little bit of a perspective distortion here, but that's okay. Let me see if I can correct this because this doesn't look straight to me here. But I think it's okay because from the angle you're taking it, you know, I think it's natural for that to be a little bit off because you're not shooting straight on. You're kind of pointed up, which caused the keystoning, and then you're over to the right a little bit. Because normally when I do this is like a two-wall architectural shot, right? Normally I try to have the corner dead center, and if I go back to this, you can see the corner is just a little bit off, but let me try a square composition and see if I can just not have that railing in this shot. 'Cause that's the only thing that, for me, just bothers me a little bit. Um, yeah, I think that makes for a little bit cleaner composition. And then the white balance, I'm just going to see what it looks like if we correct for that. Although that clearly was not the intent. The intent was clearly to have this very blue cast. Uh, but I like this. I like, let me see. I kind of like the normal white balance. I mean, I don't know what color these walls were in you know, because I wasn't there. Maybe everything is blue, but I'm going to go with this. I like this separation I'm getting here of the blue. So instead of being this is almost monochromatic, right? I can make this black and white, and it's not that much different. But if I can separate the walls with the exterior windows, I think that looks pretty good. Uh, so we'll go with that. And the only other thing I might do is just increase the contrast a bit. So I can either do that with, say, clear view. That might be a bit harsh. Let's try just regular contrast. And let me push the highlights and midtones a bit more. like that. And let's do that. Oh, I see the lonesome. I can't read the full name, your full username on my screen here, but it says that's the stairwell at the Detroit Institute of Arts. If anybody's wondering, I was balanced for gallery lighting and the stairs were sunny. Okay, I see. So yeah, your white balance was very intentional because I think auto white balance would have corrected for the walls. So let's just punch in a little bit. And I didn't apply my basic preset. I always do that first, but I just love the image so much straight out of camera. I didn't even think about it. Let me just go ahead and manually apply corrections I would normally do. So we'll do. Oh, you've used an adapted lens of some kind. It looks like so. There's not going to be any distortion that I can correct for manually without calibrating the lens directly. So I don't think we need to do anything here. Let me put in XD2 and just have the software look for purple fringing on its own. We'll add a little unsharp mask. Okay, so let me get the loop and see how we're doing. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's just a little bit softer here. Uh, I presume because of the depth of field. Yeah, there's a little bit of a depth of field because it's tack sharp right in here on the windows, but then it just tiny bit softer in the other areas of the frame. I kind of like this little bit of uh, texture we see. Oh, this is like a wood texture. So let me see if I can recover some of that, maybe with an unsharp mask. So let me increase the sharpening. Mm, that's not doing it. Let's do that. Maybe turn the threshold down. And then let me get the loop and look at it. The loop includes noise reduction and optical corrections, but we didn't do any optical corrections. I just want to see what effect. Yeah, that's better. So I'm going to put the threshold to 0. Let's see if I can increase this. Yeah, that looks good. Let me go to another part. Just want to make sure I'm not amplifying the noise too much. Even though there is noise reduction, I'm getting a little bit of. I'm just going to tack that up to 1. And I think that's good enough. All right, so um, there's a tiny bit of brown in this handrail, which is a nice contrast. I think maybe I'll try and amplify that. So I'm just going to go down here to the color wheel. I'm going to select the brownest area I can find, maybe about right here. So it's kind of an orange, actually. Let's just crank that up a bit. So I turn it off, yeah. So I want to sort of minimize I'm going to tighten this up a bit so I don't get some of because I'm getting a little bit of casting in here. So I'm just going to tighten up the color wheel so it stays more focused on the railing and doesn't bleed over into, cause any kind of color casting anywhere else. All right, that looks good. So I think just maybe a little more contrast. I back this off. Let me back this off about a 5, and I'm gonna push the contrast a bit more. And whenever I work with selective tones, I like to have a straight line. I think that helps keep the overall tone adjustments that I make more natural looking. And I'm just gonna push the exposure up just a tiny bit. Yeah, about a half a stop. Okay, let me just do a quick before and after. This line here feels, let me look at my grid again. No, this line is straight. It's a little bit keystone still, and then this side is still a little bit. So it looks like I need to rotate just left a little bit more, or let's go this way a little bit, and then push this up a tiny bit. There we go. These are very, very subtle. You kind of get an eye for it when you get. I do a lot of architectural photography, so you kind of get an eye for it uh, after a while. Okay, now that looks right. I think that's it. The only other thing is maybe this right corner. If I crop that out, let me just take a quick look. And this one rail over here, and let's go up. Let's see how that looks. That feels a little bit cramped. Feels a little bit cramped. But I think I'll go with this. Also, when you crop in a little bit away from the straight lines, it helps mask if there's any slight perspective distortions like keystoning and horizon. But I think that's good. So let me export this. So we're doing JPEG. Let me get rid of my suffix here because I was doing some stacking. I always like to put a suffix of DxO so I know that's what I processed, and then we're going to export it as sRGB with all the exit data. And let's do, usually only takes about 10 seconds. The first one sometimes can take a little bit longer when I first open up Photolab. But once the first one goes through, the rest are a little bit faster. So we'll give that a couple of seconds. And let me reset my, because William sent in, um, oh, I didn't export it to the right directory. Let me put it back, the original image folder. There we go. Let me export it one more time. Okay, so I'm going to reset, and then we're going to compare the output side by side. So here's the original, right on the right, and here is the edited image on the left. I'll just enlarge these. And I think, yeah, I definitely like the edit here. It's very subjective, right? But I think this makes for a cleaner, more natural image. Um, Particularly correcting the white balance. I'm still getting a slight keystoning or horizon issue, but um, taking off these extra windows here and a little bit here just cleans the image up and makes it a little more tidy. Uh, and then also getting rid of this one rail and this one rail here. So there's the before and after. I think a square crop works. Okay, very good. Thank you for sending that one. Um, that was an excellent image, though. All right, wow, another nice one. I was just talking about this seagull yesterday. I don't know what species of seagull this is, but I love this one because of the sort of like it looks like it's wearing a mask, right, over its eyes, like what do you call criminal, a bank robber, and then this beautiful beak color. I don't see too many of those around here, although I have seen them, but they're very far and few between. Uh, oh, so this is called a turn. Okay, thank you, William. Um, so let me start with a basic preset, which is optical corrections and noise reduction, chromatic aberrations, things like that. Nothing to do with editing so much. And then in terms of composition, yeah, I definitely going to crop that part out. This little, whatever you call that, windmill. Let's see, the exposure is fine, white balance is fine. I just need to give the bird or the image overall a little bit of balance. So the question is, do I want to frame the bird in the bottom or in the top? Because this bird is probably less than 1 megapixel of the image, so there's not much detail left. So I don't want to crop in too close. Or do I give it some breathing room? I think it's not bad. It's still a little bit too much negative space. My personal uh or my preference, and it's subjective, is I always like to fill the frame with the subject as much as I can, because it kind of simplifies things. Uh I think that works because the everything else is so blurred out. It's not really adding much context to the image. Um, and with wildlife shots, that's very typical because you're using a very long lens typically. This is 400 millimeters, right? So I think this works. And I like this little strip down here um, of darkness here. It gives kind of the image a little bit of layering. And that may be it. I can try to maybe recover a highlight here, but like I said, there's so few pixels on this bird. Even if I could temper the highlight a little bit, it wouldn't add any detail. Let me go in with the loop and see what we're getting. What I might do is back off the noise reduction a bit. Let me try just a little bit there, just to maintain some of the details here. There's very few, but there's a little bit right in here. Uh, and I think that's it. So let me export that. Wow, this was like the last one was easy, relatively speaking for me. I think this one is very easy. Normally, I spend a lot more time on these types of images, but I think that this is perfect. I like the tonality overall, the very muted colors. contrast the very strong colors of the beak here. So I think this beak makes a very, very nice accent to the whole scene. So let me reset and compare. So yeah, that is it. Just a tight crop and some noise reduction, and we're done. I think that so that's the before and that's the after. So let me zoom in. It's mainly just a crop and noise reduction with some very, very minor tweaks to the details. Because if I do the slider thing, we can kind of see, when we zoom in this close, you can see the chroma noise and just a little bit of loss of detail, but it got recovered, some of it. Some of it did recover in here. Again, this tiny bit, um, just to give you some perspective, the bird there is less than 1 megapixel, 734 by 551, so it's not even 1 megapixel here of data. But I think, yeah, I think that came up as well as it could, given the amount of pixels we had to work with. All right, thank you, William, for that one. Now I know what that's called. It's called a turn. Let's go to Seascape's. Uh, William says, you missed the picture. Okay. Uh, Notice the wings on the bird and mill. Okay, let me go back to this. Oh, the V shape here and the V shape here. I think that's what you're referring to, right? Yeah. So if I were to recompose this, keeping this in mind, it was so blurred out, I didn't even pay attention to it. But if I were to, if I were to recompose this with what William is saying, I might do this. That that would be a similar composition, and then uh, and just apply this, just back that off, sharpening all of this, a mild unsharp mask, maybe a slight horizon tilt. Although this is straight, so let me export that. Okay, I got you, William. I got you. So if I were to recompose it with I think what William had in mind, this is the way I would do it. Um, so if I reset and now compare with the new image, that's what I would do. If I were to do it, uh, if I were to do it keeping this windmill in mind. Okay, very good. Thanks for pointing that out. I can miss things too sometimes, right? Okay. Uh, and I do often. Let me see here. So we have basically this is a landscape with some architectural, right, or seascape. So we need to correct for that. I mean, just my preference, right? A lot of times people like they they're very deliberate about their angles when they do architecture, and they want that sort of, either they're deliberately going for the keystoning type errors or the Dutch angle. They want the horizon crooked, but it's in my nature is just to straighten all the lines out, just the way my brain works. So let me do. Let me apply basic preset first. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to do that. So there's my basic preset. Then I'm going to apply a perspective distortion, and now everything is straight. So that makes me happy. Uh, as far as the exposure and white balance, that all looks really good. Maybe just some local adjustments here on the vendors here, these games. I like this little accent of red here in the background, and there's some green here. And compositionally, I think maybe 16 by 9 would be wouldn't be a bad way to go with this, and just kind of even out the negative space a little bit, like so. Okay, I think that's a composition I like. So I'm just going to accent some of the colors and shadows, maybe the flags as well. And that's it. And I can do that with local adjustments. So I'm just going to click on the yellow areas here. And it looks like the masking is pretty tight, so I'm not going to make any adjustments here for selectivity. And let's just push the shadows a bit. Well, no, let's just do a linear push. And just a little bit of saturation in the oranges there. And some micro contrast, and maybe a touch of clear view, maybe like a 5. Let me see how that is. Yeah, just a little touch there. I think we can do the same thing on the flags. Let me just get in tight on the flags here. They don't need much either. And then we'll do the same thing way down here. Let's just push it a little bit. Like I said, I'm just focusing on the colors. I'm going to spread this out a bit so that the reds and the flags get a little joy. Okay. I think the greens are good. All right, now let's do a little bit of extra work on the sky. So I'm going to use a linear, what do they call this one? I always forget the names of these things. A control line. We'll use a control line right about there. Let me move the dropper up here, and we'll just hit a little bit of clear view, a little bit of micro contrast, something like that. And then we'll do the same thing for the water. This time I'm going to use, maybe I'll just use a brush. So let me start a new brush. That's a little tricky. I don't necessarily want to affect the pier. So let me just do a control point. I'll just go in and manually adjust these. I'm going to use a tighter mask, Luma and Chroma about +5. Because if I used a brush, it would affect the wood here on the pier more than I'd want it to. But with the masking, I can sort of deal with that a little bit, minimize that effect. So let's do some clear view, and I'm going to pull blacks in a little bit more. I just like water to be a little bit darker. Maybe push the highlights a bit just to give a little bit of specular to the water. And then last, uh, I'm thinking about the pier itself. If I want to recover some of the shadows, I hate using this particular tool, the auto masking, because it's really not that great, especially with this kind of subject. But let me just give the pier a little bit of a push. Some micro contrast and clear view. A little bit of a push on the highlights and midtones. Let me straighten this out. I think it missed a spot there. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm done. So let me export this one. And I see John Follows dropped in. Good to see you, John. And we'll reset and compare. All right, so here's the original image on the right. Uh, it's a raw file, so it's going to be a little bit low contrast and low saturation, very subtle, but raw files are meant to be edited. And as you can see, my edit on the left is definitely more contrasty with richer colors. So if we just, maybe a slider would be easier to see these differences. And then of course the horizon correction and perspective distortions, which I just used the auto feature in this case. I didn't have to tweak anything manually because it's close enough. And you'll notice little things like the reds here and the pier, bringing the shadows in on that. And then, of course, I think the fine details are definitely much better as well. Um, so if I go to this, yeah, cleaned up very nicely. Oh, there's a little seagull here. Maybe it's a tern. But okay, very nice. Very nice image there. But I think the crop and straightening horizon was sort of the biggest change, and then contrast and saturation. Okay, let's go to the next one. And I've done those. Okay, here we have one from Maxim Spulin. Let me edit this one. Oh, let me download the optical or DxO optics module. So this is a new camera lens combo for the stream. So we have an oldie but a goodie, the old T3i with the 35 f2. Wow, that T3i, man, that's been out 7 to 10 years. That's an old camera. Okay. So again, I think perspective correction. So let me apply basic preset first. Let me just see what the auto does. I don't think the auto is going to do a good job here. It might. Yeah, that's a little rough. I'm going to use that, but there's still some major keystoning here that I need to correct for somewhat. I'll just put a grid line in. I think that's close enough right there. Slight, slight tilt to the left. Hmm, there we go. All right, that feels about right. Uh, let me look at how it got cropped. Let's see if there's anything else I need in here or need to come down. The down here at the bottom, the people's feet are cut off a little bit. So let me just get in a little bit tighter. And I'm not sure I need this building on the left at all, except that's where the sun is, which is, very deliberate, right? In the composition. Let me try that. I don't like how tight I am on this door here. That's okay. Uh, I mean, I like the overall feel. I wish it was just a little bit lower so I wasn't cutting off the feet down here. Because the other option is to just take those people out and then deal with uh, deal with this little area here. Yeah, that feels better. Gosh, I don't know why this. I kind of miss the flowers along the building there, the balcony, but maybe get rid of any trace of that building at all and just come in relatively tight. Maybe come up a little bit right in there. And now I need to just fix the keystoning a little bit in the horizon. Come up a tiny bit. Okay, I think this is the composition I'll go with. Maybe a little bit tighter. I don't think I like this door, but it's balanced almost perfectly here. This door on the left, either add more of that to it or get rid of it. Okay. I think I'll leave it in there. I like the brown here going against the brown shutters. Just kind of balances the image a little bit. All right, so that's the composition. White balance is fine. I think the exposure, we're exposed for the shadow area here mostly, so this is completely clipped. So the question is there anything recoverable in this area? And I doubt it. Yeah, there's nothing there. The tiny bit of cloud there, but let me just pull the highlights a little bit because I want to bring a little contrast back in to the upper part of this image. So let's do a little bit of micro contrast and some clear view. I don't want to take away all of I don't want to take away, I don't want this to be equal to the bottom area in terms of contrast. I just want a little bit more bite. Maybe, yeah, maybe no clear view at all. Just work with micro contrast and push the highlights back in. Because I kind of like the softness that's up here in the image, and then the very strong, good contrast down in here. All right, so I'm going to leave the upper part the way it is, but on the bottom part, I just want to highlight some of the people just a little bit like this. So maybe I'll just give it a little bit of a push here, just a touch of clear view and a touch of micro contrast. And then there's some artificial lighting in the scene inside here, it looks like. So I'm going to just exaggerate that a tiny bit, maybe this one too. And let's just push the highlights and we'll push the midtones. Okay, that's good. And there's a little bit of flare right here, I believe. This, well, maybe not. That might be part of the building, but it looks like I'm thinking it might be a little bit of flare off the lens hitting here. So I'm just gonna just get my healing brush and let's just see if we can mask that a little bit. I'm gonna turn the opacity down to about 50%. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So now it looks a little more natural rather than because it may be in real life, there, that spot, but I just wanted to temper it, whether it's actually there or if it's just a little bit of flaring from the lens. Okay, I think that's it. The only other thing I might do, the white balance is good, but let's just see what happens if I just arbitrarily select something I think might be white in the scene. This is that's not really great because there's some overcast. Here, this is going to be kind of a brownish color. Okay, up here, this is probably white. If I select that, okay, that changed the feel of this image quite a bit. Let me go back to the original. I'm just going to back this off to about 6,000. I want it to be that warm. Then last thing I'll do with the color is what I'd like to do is just make this the wood door and the shingles here maybe just a little more prominent and a little brighter. Just push the luminance up a tiny bit. I like this yellow too. Let me see if I can grab something down here. Uh, and just saturate those a tiny bit more. Okay. All right. I'm going to call it there. Let's export that. And good morning, Larry. Good to see you. And we'll do a side by side. Let me reset it, compare it with the new, and do a side by side. So again, I did crop in quite a bit to fill the frame a bit more. There's just a lot of negative space up here, and then also the people's feet were cut off down here. But I wanted to keep the flaring over here. I think that's a really nice accent to the overall scene. And then just a minor correction on the white balance, just to make it feel a little bit more daylight than it does, shade, or it looks a little bit yellow to me overall in the original. So I just manually adjusted the white balance to 6,000 something. I think that looks pretty good compared to, this building. I really love the flowers here, but unfortunately, this couple here is cut off. I like the reflections here. Really, there's another image right in here that have been really pretty awesome to add to this image. If you look down here, you got nice reflections here in the glass. You got these beautiful colors here. This right here is another image, and I love these two buildings together right here. But it's not complete. It's a little bit off. So I think that this side would have been a nice complement to this image. But okay, very good. Very nice. Let's go to the next one. So Maxim Spulin, that looks like maybe your first image you've submitted to the stream. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, so we have one here from Paul, regular contributor to the stream. Greatly appreciate it. So let's apply basic preset. And so we saw the optical correction there. Now this is this is an interesting image because we have a lot of, it's very busy here in the center, but then we have this beautiful green and red color palette down here. So I'm thinking to myself, do I even need anything up here? And just do a wide crop. Let me try 16 by 7. That might be too tight, but yeah, that's a little bit too tight. 16 by 9. I think that's enough right there. I don't need the sky or any of the rest of the building. It's already represented right here. We have about equidistance left and right. So all we have to do is just soften the image a tiny bit because the contrast is very harsh. Um, Let me see. Maybe just a simple global adjustment here. Just a little bit of a push in the shadows might be all it needs, and then some micro contrast. Let's just do the auto, and then let's make the water just a little bit darker. So I'll use a control line and put the dropper here somewhere green, and then tighten up the chroma mask. Good. And let's just clear view and pull the blacks in like so. And okay, and then this color, let me see how off this color is. Sometimes my eyes deceive me. This looks, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted the color dropper down here. Sometimes my eyes deceive me. This looks red to me, but I just want to drop it. Yeah, that's definitely red. Obviously, this is red. So the red here on the boat and the red on the building are exactly the same, other than the saturation. So the question is, do I change anything on that red? I just bring it down a bit because it is a little bit too strong here as well. I think I'll do that and then just do just another slight push to the shadows. And then I'm going to emphasize some of the yellows down here. So let me go in here. Let's go back. Just saturate some of that. And I'm going to tighten this up a bit. I'm getting too much orange, but not enough yellow. Right about there. Let's okay, we'll leave the luminance alone. There, maybe, yeah, I think the green yellow color here. Let's just push the greens a little bit more. I'm just spot checking the colors. I think that's good. Okay, so let's export that. And oh, excuse me. We'll reset and compare with the output. All right, so oh wow, this green looks really strong. I might have to back that off. Oh yeah, let me do that real quick. So let me go back to my original edit. Okay, let's export this. Now we can compare. All right. Okay, so on the original, like I was saying, I didn't feel like I needed anything up here. This building is represented very, very well right here. Maybe a slight horizon correction, but let's just do a split like this. And I think, yeah, I think just like I said, my preference is to make water always a little bit darker. The way I would do this, like in the field, is I would just use a polarizer because that's effectively what I'm doing is trying to give a polarization effect to the water overall. I'm a big fan of using polarizers in the field. So when I come across an image, with water in it, I typically like to exaggerate that polarization effect or make it darker. But I think this composition works for me better just for the sake of there's nothing up here of interest that isn't sort of already here. All right. Um, let's do the last one here from John. And okay. We'll apply basic presets. I see a little bit of distortion. Um, okay, preset, default. Let me bring up the editing tools. So I have a little bit of clipping, but not so much that I don't think we can't recover some of the highlights here. And of course, horizon and uh, skewing or keystoning errors or, perspective distortions, basically. Let's try the auto and see what that does. All right, that did a good job. And then composition, I think I'm just going to lead a line from the left corner down here, left bottom corner, top right corner, something like that. And just enough space on the right side. Okay, that looks good. All right, let's see if we can temper some of these highlights. So I'm going to use a control line. Because the exposure down here is not bad. It's just the highlights got clipped, which is, typical of this kind of scene. I'm going to just push the luma a little bit so we get a little better, more selective masking. And we're going to temper the highlights. Yeah, there they go. That's looking better. Maybe add some clear view. Maybe pull that all the way down. Right about there. And I'm going to let me just stretch this up. The effect is a little bit too strong on the building. And I need to tilt it. Give me a second. Let me tilt it this way. All right, good. Now let's highlight some of the spots of color here from the flowers. Uh I'm just gonna drop. Let's just drop a couple of control points around. And rather than be super selective with the color, I'm just gonna just pick reds and just stretch this out into the purples, magentas, and a little bit less of the oranges. Because these flowers are mostly red, purple, magenta, pink. So I'm just gonna manually adjust this a little bit down here and then pump the saturation like that, just to make those stand out a bit more. It's a little bit right here. Just come in. There's some blues there. So I'm going to stretch this even more to capture some of that. All right, very good. Um, now, the the stone or the brickwork here, I want to bring out a little more texture in that as well. And that possibly got tempered a lot. Let me just see. No, a little bit got lost. A little bit of the contrast here got lost with the control line. So what I need to do is, let me go back to that control line and adjust the chroma mask. So let me see how that looks now. Uh, okay. So maybe I need to give it some micro contrast. Okay, that helps. All right, so that's a good baseline, but I want to make this even more distinct. So I'm going to use just simple control points to emphasize what we lost a little bit when I did the control line. Um, and I'm going to do this kind of all over the bricks. So I'm going to push the highlights back in a little bit and add some clear view. Yeah, that's looking good. A little bit here too. And maybe not there. Actually, I like that, but we need to do it on the street. Okay, that looks good. How about the brickwork up here? Let me I add one in here. We'll just tighten that up a bit. All right, I think I'm done. So maybe a little bit of a mm, maybe just a little more push in the greens. So I'm going to tighten this. What if I just select this green? A little bit of push right there. All right. That's it. So let's export that. Oh, it's a handheld high res shot. Okay, very nice. Very, very nice. Um, let's reset and do a side by side with, oh, I did it too soon. Wait a minute. There we go. Okay. Why is, let me see something. Something's not right. I think we're okay. So, yeah, just basically tempering the highlights here to bring some of the color back from the blue and some of the blues in the windows. Uh, and when I did that, I had to kind of recover the brickwork a little bit and then highlighting the colors or saturating the colors a bit for the flowers and the greens. So maybe if we do a slider right about there, you can see I really like how the greens came out versus the greens that were here. And then, the flowers just have a little bit more pop in them. And then obviously the perspective corrections and crop. And I think that's a nice edit for this kind of image. And then just watching the corners right here and down here to fill the frame basically. Because if you look at the original, the corners are just a little bit over. But this is how I would probably take the picture in the field, and then with the intent to make these corrections in post processing, so that I make sure I capture every pixel that I want to capture or every piece of this composition that I want in the frame. I always shoot a little bit wider than I need to so I can make these perspective corrections because I intend to post process them. But okay, very nice. So one last thing is I know Shakay sent a version of his edit, so we'll compare that to mine. Let's see. So we'll use select one as a reference and then compare side by side. Oh, so Shakab sort of went a little bit opposite of me, but then there's some similarities. But he warmed the image up quite a bit, whereas I didn't really do any white balance adjustment. I kind of liked the way it was, but he went warmer and also it looks like softened the water up quite a bit to give it a more surreal. So basically went a little softer, but he did saturate the colors in a very similar way, the reds and the yellows and oranges. And with the white balance adjustment, it's exaggerated even more, being a little bit warmer overall. So really interesting edit. And then we did basically the same horizon corrections, perspective corrections. But the way he edited his image, it makes a lot more sense to keep this negative space here on the left uh, because of the look and feel that he was going for. Whereas on my image, if I had kept all this negative space, it's just distracting all of the details over here to the left that don't add any information to the scene. But this edit here is more about the feel and the softness of the scene. So he's taken an otherwise very harsh. He took a very different approach. I took a very clinical, harsh approach to the scene, contrasty, punchy, versus Shakib went with a much softer approach. He softened the sky, softened the water, warmed up the overall white balance. So it's a very different feel. So this is a great example, of two very different approaches in that both of them I think look great, but very different approach to the scene, to editing. So that's pretty awesome. That's a great example. Right here you can see right away the difference in white balance, right? Much warmer over here. But okay, that's a great example of the difference between our two editing approaches. I don't know. What do you guys think? Okay, so that's it for today. In terms of editing, I didn't get too many images this week. I think partially due to that I'm not going on my normal Friday that I normally do these edits. And I didn't give a lot of notice, just a couple of days, unfortunately. So a lot of these images were submitted last week for the Friday stream and not for today. But that said, I'll probably try again next week on Wednesday. I'll post I'll post the stream as soon as I get a better feel for what my schedule next week is. And but you can always use the link that's in this stream to submit your images anytime so that I can edit them next week. So don't hesitate to do that. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these editing live streams. If you do, feel free to click the like button, subscribe, support the channel through 99-cent memberships or donations directly. Either way, they're greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.